feeling a little bit depressed or a little bit down or a little bit sad, during this particular these particular 2 days, and there'll be a lot of dissatisfaction and moaning about money and relationships and just how unfair life is in general. And I'm not trying to make fun of that, but that's usually what these eclipses do. The funny thing about lunar eclipses and myself is I was born close to an eclipse, not quite right on it, but close to the moon passing over Rahu, so I don't really notice lunar eclipses quite so strongly as other people do. So they actually feel fairly familiar to me. But with a lot of other people, so I tend to worry about a lot of things for no reason anyway. It's just part of my nature. But basically, this particular transit, especially if people are unhappy with work, unhappy with their social life, unhappy with their relationship life, this will be another break-off or another break-off opportunity for people to undertake. And this eclipse cycle ends around December of 2019. So this will be sort of, we're not going to be having this pattern every single month. So keep that in mind. But eclipses tends to be difficult times to start things, unless it's a meditation or a spiritual activity. They tend to be difficult times to complete things. And we have a lot of retrogrades in the sky, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And that's also a barrier to completing things. So essentially, this eclipse will remind us of the things we failed to do over the past few months. I would encourage you not to get too discouraged, because your mood will change by Monday, and you'll actually improve yourself. You'll actually feel much better. You'll feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders, no matter what you do. I generally encourage people not to break up during an eclipse or during a Rahu Ketu, or when Rahu and Ketu is involved with Venus, but I can't tell people not to make big changes. It's pretty much up to them. So essentially, but I would also advise caution. If you feel like you're getting really dissatisfied with your relationship partner, just wait for at least until August. Sort of give Venus a chance to wind its way out, and try not to make any sudden or drastic moves. The major thing is we should see a lot of improvements happening, especially to the Gemini and Sagittarius sun signs in early 2020. Saturn will be moving out of that sign, and you'll see some improvement also in the fall, because Jupiter will be moving into Sagittarius in October, so that should be very good. Now let's talk about the retrogrades for a second. We have currently what I would call three primary Vedic planets, all retrograde. I'm not counting Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, but those are all, if I can recall it correctly, Pluto's retrograde, Neptune is retrograde, Uranus is direct. So essentially, we have Saturn, Jupiter, and as of July 7th, Mercury will be retrograde. Now, it's become kind of an astrological cliche to a point for Mercury retrograde for things going wrong. And usually what happens when Mercury goes retrograde is communications get interrupted, they get delayed. It's not considered to be a good time to sign contracts, but I'll tell you a little secret. It is a great time to get deals on things. It's a great time to get bargains. So essentially, if you find bargain, you'll find a lot of bargains during Mercury retrograde. It lasts for about 3 weeks. Western astrology has what they call a Mercury backwash, which lasts for about another 3 weeks after that. So essentially, after July 7th, signing major contracts is discouraged. Until August, long-term commitments are discouraged because Saturn is retrograde. And until around the same time, Jupiter will be retrograde, and essentially any new fields of study, any new fields of education. Probably a good idea to put it off for the time being. Any new businesses starting, probably not a good time to start them. It'll be good for things like studying or refreshing yourself. You can even send out resumes and things like that. So that'll be good. Let me quickly tell you which parts of the world are going to be most affected by this eclipse on July 16th. All right, so we see Venus, we see a Rahu and a Sun line right over Texas through to the middle of Mexico, and that should be problematic. We had ice storms, we had hailstorms, excuse me. I keep doing that, my apologies. We have hailstorms in Mexico during the solar eclipse, which to me is a Ketu-like phenomenon. It gives very weird weather and it gives watery problems. Mars is over just west of Florida. Nothing is really affecting South America right now, which is good, but Mexico and the Midwest, all the way up through Texas and the Dakotas and central Canada looks like it's kind of a trouble spot. Also, the Great Lakes and all the way down to Georgia and Florida look a little bit troubled. Maybe the extreme west coast of South America will experience some problems with earthquakes, but again, these are, it looks more like shipping problems or shipping disasters or things like that. If we're looking at, now again, these things are only possibilities, so I have to stress I'm not predicting earthquakes for South America. The other problematic lines seem to run through Italy, West Africa, especially close to Gabon, which is like sort of like underneath. If you look at Africa in a map, it's like it's right underneath that tip, and essentially you'll also have some problems near Egypt, Syria. Some problems. I have to look a little bit in Bulgaria. Central Europe looks really like there's a lot of activity around Central Europe, and what I'm thinking is protests similar to what we saw, some turning violent actually because the moon is affected and the moon lord is Mars. And lastly, again, some problems in Western India and also in Central East India. And what I'm looking at is essentially there have been a lot of water problems in India lately, and that looks like it'll probably worsen over the next month or so. In terms of the Far East, we have Venus, Saturn, and Rahu all passing over, not really close to Japan, but sort of by there, so like northern Japan. And Australia actually looks unscathed right now during this period, but the period right now, Pakistan and India look problematic, and the other parts of the world that look problematic to me are, like I said, essentially central west United States, so going into New Mexico, Arizona, and a little bit in the Ohio area, essentially that the line between Ohio and Florida. But these are going to be more popular issues, so you'll see some what I would call demonstrations or popular uprisings. Again, not revolutions. That's really not what I'm calling for, but more like demonstrations. Maybe even some minor panics in some of the markets in those parts of the world. So that's it for this week. I am going to try to get back to regular astrology after this lunar eclipse passes, I promise you, because the eclipses are important, but they're not the totality of astrology. They're really important for mundane events, and they can hit people's charts very strongly, as I've seen. But they also present opportunities for growth and expansion, new life experiences. So for those people affected by the eclipses, don't look at it as, essentially, my mother had an expression, I'm sure you've all heard the expression, one door closes, another one opens. That's really what an eclipse event does. It tends to open opportunities for people in addition to closing off opportunities. So you can't really grow until you've been taught something. You can't advance to the next grade until you pass the test, right? Until you've completed one grade. So think of it in those terms, and the perspective becomes a lot better. Especially with Jupiter and Scorpio, a lot of things, and eclipses do reveal things that were hidden as well. So you'll be seeing a lot of stuff come out. Again, media is going to present a big problem for people over the next few months, just because of the Mercury and Mars interaction. And also politics will be really, really fiery over the next couple of months, especially in August. So stay tuned. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but it's not going to be as bumpy as a lot of people fear. Okay? All right, so that's all I have to say for this week. I'll have to check my time because I went over last time. Namaste. Thank you. And have a great week, okay? Don't let these things worry you. By the way, I did want to say these videos are being posted on YouTube if you want to catch up on them later on. And I want to thank Greater New Bedford Cable TV for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all. Namaste.